Francis Ngannou has made no bones about the fact that he believes he is seriously underpaid. The heavyweight champion has spent the majority of the last year telling anyone who will listen that the UFC's pay structure isn't to his liking, but some people are beginning to tire of his complaints. Today we're discussing Khamzat Chimaev and Chael Sonnen somewhat surprisingly defending the UFC over Ngannou's pay demands. Stay with us. First up, Francis has been discussing the injury that has kept him out for almost a year. Ngannou defeated Cyril Gane back in January in what was the first defense of the title he had won against Stipe Miocic the previous March. However, that was the last we saw of the big Cameroonian, as he has been laid off ever since with a serious knee injury. And speaking recently, Ngannou has described how he actually injured the knee about 3 weeks before the fight in a sparring session at the end of last year. Ngannou's coach, Eric Nixick, had brought in a sparring partner from Germany who attempted to take the big man down but inadvertently ended up causing the knee injury. Francis himself explained that he believes his training partner got overwhelmed and decided to shoot for a desperate takedown, which absolutely nobody on the planet will blame him for. I mean, can you imagine sparring with Francis Ngannou? The champion, who is currently riding a 6-fight win streak, went to say, "Then, when I tried to turn around, I heard the crack on my knee. Then, right at that moment, when you hear that on your knee, you know that something is happening." Of course, Francis then had to figure out how he was going to take on Gane with a busted knee, but his team figured out a way to prepare him without overstraining the knee too much. He has spent the majority of 2022 recovering, so hopefully he will be back in early 2023. What do you guys make of the injury? Next up, who could he face upon his return? Well, there's two men who have been regularly linked with the fight with Francis Ngannou. One of them is former champion Stipe Miocic, who will almost certainly believe that as the UFC's winningest heavyweight of all time, he should be given a rematch, which would also double as a trilogy fight between the pair. They first came face-to-face back in 2018, but Stipe proved too much for the African champ. He was criticized for a seriously suspect gas tank. Stipe simply let Ngannou tire himself out before dominating over the course of the latter rounds to win a unanimous decision. The rematch came in April 2021 with Francis knocking the champ out with one punch in the second round, but Miocic hasn't been seen since. Another option would be a certain John Jones, who hasn't been seen in the UFC for even longer, more than a year longer in fact. Jones, the former light heavyweight king and currently undefeated bar a DQ against Matt Hamill, has spent the last 3 years bulking up and is thought to be ready for a crack at the heavyweight crown in the next few months. This would almost certainly be the money fight and the fight that most fans would be most interested in seeing. Could Jones dominate another division like he did the 205-pound division? Give us your thoughts below. Next up, Khamzat has called out the newly crowned middleweight king. Stay tuned. Khamzat Chimaev lost a lot of fans for his antics at UFC 279 back in September, as he missed weight by an incredible 7.5 pounds, and if recent social media posts are anything to go by, it seems as though Boers is set on moving up to middleweight. Taking to Instagram recently, the Chechen posted a picture of himself in the gym looking absolutely huge, which lends itself to the rumor that he will be moving up. And shortly after a new middleweight king was crowned last week in the shape of Alex Pereira, Chimaev wasted no time in calling out the Brazilian. It seems as though Khamzat has his sights set on fighting at UFC 281 next month if his comments on social media are anything to go by. However, it seems as though he is a little confused as to the exact location. Khamzat first tweeted, "Ready to fight in Brazil," before tagging the new champ, but then a few hours later again tagged Pereira and said, "10 December, let's go, I already agreed, now it's your turn." Of course, UFC 281 is in Las Vegas, so we're not sure where or when Khamzat expects to fight Poatan. What we are sure of, however, is that this fight has no chance of happening considering Pereira just went through a 5-round war with Israel Adesanya. What do you guys make of Khamzat's call-out? Next up, Chael Sonnen has been told to shut up in no uncertain terms. Whilst Chael is one of the most entertaining voices in the sport, with controversial opinions on almost every topic and fighter on the roster, he appears to have seriously peeved off Liverpool favorite Darren Till. Sonnen has recently suggested that Till would pull out of his upcoming fight against Dricus du Plessis at UFC 281 next month, which has rubbed the Scouse brawler up the wrong way. With the gorilla struggling with injuries of late, Sonnen's remarks will do nothing to help him through his troubles, which is why Till has invited Sonnen to shut the F up. Till explained that every time he puts a post up, Sonnen will comment saying, "This is an indicator Till's gonna pull out the fight," which must be extremely infuriating when you think about it. Till hasn't been seen in the Octagon for for over a year since he was dismantled by Derek Brunson in September 2021. Since that time, he has pulled out of a fight with Jack Hermanson and had other rumored fights not materialize due to his fitness concerns. At 29 years old, Till, who was once tipped to be a title contender, needs to put together a run and fast. So, what has Khamzat been saying with regards to Francis? Let's see. Well, it's safe to say that Chimaev isn't interested in hearing Ngannou's complaints any longer. Francis has been a vocal dissenter with regards to fighter pay over the past 12 months and has been locked in contract talks with the UFC for a large portion of the year. However, fellow superstar Khamzat Chimaev has given his take on the issue, suggesting all he needs to do is fight and his money problems will be taken care of. Speaking to ESPN recently, the Russian said, "A lot of guys talk about how the UFC doesn't give us a lot of money and other things, before going on to claim they forgot where they were before entering the UFC. Of course, this doesn't excuse the UFC's terrible pay structure, which sees some fighters paid a paltry $12,000 to show and a further $12,000 to win, but Chimaev believes that Ngannou just has to appreciate everything that's happened with him, urging him to fight as much as he can and the money will come. Given the fact that he is currently out injured after a serious knee injury, this isn't really possible at the moment. We should also note that Khamzat Chimaev is clearly being fast-tracked for superstardom by the UFC and is one of Dana White's star pupils. He will almost certainly be on a pretty healthy contract right now with the promise of even more once his star explodes even further. What do you guys think about Khamzat's words? And finally, what has Kale had to say about Ngannou? We can always count on Kale to give his thoughts on all things MMA. Motormouth himself recently branded the heavyweight champion disrespectful for expecting to be paid more even though he is the current heavyweight king. Of course, fighting is a short career, and considering the risk of what these guys put themselves through, no one can blame Ngannou for wanting to cash in on while his stock is high. Well, almost no one. Chael Sonnen thinks that although the big man believes his demands are reasonable, they're actually disrespectful. He added, "If I'm the business guy and I'm taking all the risk, but I'm guaranteeing it no matter how bad it hurts, those numbers right now, on time every time, I'll figure it out. There's an appreciation that must be shown. I don't know what's going to come in, that's a risk every time, but I can know what's going out, and you want to talk?" And whilst Sonnen can't seriously believe what he's saying, suggesting the heavyweight champ should get in line like everyone else, there might need to be a bit of give and take on Ngannou's part. Sonnen went on to reference the fact that there are 556 fighters and the UFC puts on events every Saturday. However, Sonnen needs to be careful, as from where we're sitting, it is him being disrespectful towards one of the UFC's biggest draws. Whose side are you on? As always, thank you so much for stopping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we'll be talking about all sorts of other cool bits and pieces. And don't forget to like today's video whilst also sharing it with any MMA heads you might know of. Bye guys, see you in the next one.